I grew up in the church, right? So when I went into psychedelics, I was very terrified to expose it to everyone because I thought that I was going to be ridiculed and called like, this is the devil's work and, all these things, right? It's totally different from like a Christian community. Like we're in the forest, in the woods, stomping around and calling different things forth and all this stuff. And so I had to like go in the middle of that and be like, okay, my audience and the people that I know are not going to totally resonate with how I was taught.
Welcome to the Mindfulness Experience Podcast, where we dive deep into the realms of mental health, self-exploration, and transformative healing. I'm your host, Keith Fiveson, and today we welcome a true luminary, Phoenix White. Phoenix White is a force of nature. She's a beacon of hope and empowerment, a pioneering advocate for mental health and psychedelic therapy, and she's the CEO of the Sacred Celestial Institute. Her journey is nothing short of awe-inspiring, filled with resilience, triumph, and a relentless dedication to healing and transformation. We'll hear more about her story in a moment. Welcome, Phoenix. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. That sounded really cool, your intro. Woo!
Oh, that's you. And I'm really so appreciative to have you here. And, we talked a little bit before the show about your journey, and I'm really interested because it's very inspiring. And you've done quite a bit. Can you share with our listeners what led you on this path of mental health as an advocate and also as a psychedelic-assisted therapist?
What led me on this path, I think it started when I was younger. I've come from a family that, I dealt with a lot of trauma, abuse, not that my family didn't try to, do all the right things, but I still ended up in really bad situations when I was younger. And I always felt like the odd kid, that had these gifts, that always wanted to help people, that always could see certain things and hear certain things. So I was a weird one.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Me too.
Yeah. So it's always us, right? We go through most stuff. But it's led me on this journey of wanting to see people who have been through some of the things I've been through and even more things. Have a safe space to be able to heal and evolve and grow and open up to be more of themselves. And so that is what I've committed my life to. It's freeing people. I really want to help people to be more free and more of themselves and more healed. And so in my community, that has been really hard because they have been through a lot of trauma where I grew up. A lot of the women in my family, a lot of the women that I meet, they've been through a lot of trauma. And so I found myself, it just was in my lap since I was very, very little.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up something that I think is probably not talked about enough. Gabor Mate talks about it, but, it's the whole idea that we're born into a society of trauma, and we're not given any kind of manual about it. We're just told to be quiet and adapt, so whether or not it's implicit or explicit, so with this trauma, you recognize that and you said, I'm going to be the change I want to see. And you wound up doing the work around that. Is that right?
Exactly. It's because it's hard because it's like, one, there's shame associated with going through certain things. There's this shame, there's this guilt, there's that lack of worthiness. There's all these different things depending on what has happened to you in your life or what you've gone through. Some people don't have parents, some people don't have fathers, some people have been abused, some people grew up in foster care, so they have abandonment issues, or there's like all these different these nuances that have happened to people. They're not all the same as mine, but at the end of the day, people want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be felt, they want to be understood, they want to be held, they want to be nurtured, but in a safe space. I think a lot of people don't feel safe enough to heal. Yeah, and I know that sounds kind of crazy because everybody's like, you just got to heal. But it's like, I don't feel safe enough to heal. I got to let my guard down to heal. You have to allow all this stuff to come to the surface. And if I let all this come shooting up to the surface, then what if I fracture? What if I can't get myself back out? Like a lot of people are living in survival mode,
right.
A lot of
fight
that
or
has
flight.
been, and it's not just, a lot of us are fawning. because people go into that fight or flight, right? It's like that normal
Okay,
fight, flight, or
whatever you
freeze.
want.
But they forget about fawn, where we just go into people pleasing mode,
Right.
To the point that it just kills a lot of people on a soul level. So you're just doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, but you're not being filled back up. You're just trying to please people at the expense of yourself. Right?
I really like that because there is that need for, so desperately, we really want to just sort of relax and really tell people our story, or go into just being seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated for whatever that story is, because that's the shame, and that's the less worthiness. I work with clients, and I was working with a very successful person this morning who was having issues around his own self-worth, even though incredibly successful, but there is that deep, it's still broken but unmended aspect of the narrative. Let me ask you, I really love the work you're doing with the Sacred Celestial Institute, and I really like your fusion. You have this fusion of the sacred and the sacred and the science, and the medical and the mystical. I'm wondering, if you look at the spirituality and the science, how do you approach merging these two disparate realms? Because a lot of people don't see it. I kind of think it's the same thing, and I'm wondering, I have a hard time sometimes articulating it with people.
Right.
But I'm wondering, how do you bring those together as a healing modality? Because therein lies the container that you're talking about, that safe space, I think, where people can, regardless of what your wounding is, because a lot of people come out of a sort of a religious perspective. They don't understand the difference between spirituality and religion. So I'm wondering what your perspective is on that.
So I grew up in the church, right? So when I went into psychedelics, I was very terrified to expose it to everyone, because I thought that I was going to be ridiculed and called like, this is the devil's work, and all these things, right? But I'm more of spiritual. I'm not religious anymore, but that's how I grew up, right? So most of the people that know me, well, large majority of people that know me, in my family especially, they're Christian, right? And so it's being the bridge. So what I realized, that I became this bridge between spirituality, religion, science, and also fusing all those indigenous methods together, because I learned from more of indigenous teachers in Mexico when I was living there over the past 3.5, 4 years. And so me learning from them, I didn't learn from, it's totally different from like a Christian community. Like, we're in the forest, in the woods, stomping around and calling different things forth and all this stuff. And so I had to go in the middle of that and be like, okay, my audience and the people that I know are not going to totally resonate with how I was taught. So
you don't have to be in the pew. You can be in the woods, that's or on the grass, or in the ocean, or the sky, wherever,
Right. They don't resonate with that. That audience doesn't resonate with the language that they use. So my job is to use a universal language where I can talk to everyone in the ways that they understand it, so that they all feel safe. So now in my ceremonies, I get lots of Christians. I get everybody that you can imagine comes to our ceremonies. And so what I've done with the fusion of it is with the medical field, the pharmaceutical field, I learn and I study, how does it affect the brain? What happens? The chemical part of it.
Sure, the neuroscience.
And then with the more indigenous spiritual side of it, I learned that in the wilderness. I learned those in the woods with the indigenous cultures. That's a totally different thing. They're not teaching the science.
Right.
They're teaching the spirit. Right. Teaching the culture. And so I take that information so that when I have a conversation at a ceremony, I'm teaching you And so that's where that bridge sort of happens. It's like, well, what's happening in the brain? They're not going to always want to hear about the spirit is doing this and opening up your mind to all the other spirits. They're going to be like, oh no, this part of your brain is activated. The psilocybin turns into psilocin, and this is what happens. It makes different parts of your brain communicate that wouldn't normally communicate together. So I'm able to articulate it in a way that doesn't sound so woo-woo, even though I respect and honor the sacred medicine. So some of the practices, that's why I do it in ceremony instead of therapy version.
Right.
Even though it's the same.
So there's no white coat. There's no white coats and closed door rooms. It's really about creating a sacred space.
Yes.
Within that sacred space, you hold the container of whatever is there or present for the individual. I want to go back to your story about the church and the religion, because I love, and I have repeated it often on the show, Joseph Campbell's wonderful line about the difference between religion and spirituality, which is religion is the menu, spirituality is the meal. So and if you've ever been to one of the Greek diners, you can have a lot of stuff on the menu, but the point being is that you're really setting the stage here, which really doesn't have a menu. You're bringing it together, the left brain, the right brain, the logic, and the sacred and the science, and you're bringing those together within ceremony. Let me ask you, you talked about, I was looking at this multi-sensory healing experience. It's fascinating because it feels to me like it's part of certainly the ceremony and the ability to, I'm a big fan of breath work, and I'm sure you know this, but the word breath in Latin is spir, S-P-I-R, as in spirit, as an expiration, as an aspiration, as an inspiration, as in the spire of a church, as in wonderful things around the breath work, right? I mean, it's all about how we breathe. So what is the healing, the multisensory healing experience? Can you elaborate on it, and how does it enhance the therapeutic journey for the individuals?
It's everything. So, okay, let me tell you why. So it excites me because, and that is what's the differentiator between going to the white coat version, in a medical office, and coming to a ceremony for me. So multisensory for me is what psychedelics do. It's like all of your senses are blown open, right? So what you see, what you feel, what you taste, what you hear, like everything is expanded, right?
And I mean, if you look at the MRIs of the brains that are, on psilocybin, you see an interconnection and a firing of all of the areas of the brain. It's really amazing.
It's like, I always tell people, it's like, if you thought there was one method or one road that you can get to solve a problem on psychedelics, there's 15 or 20 more roads that you could take to solve that same problem. It's like it opens up those neural pathways for you to be able to find different solutions and see things from a different perspective that you wouldn't normally see. So with the
multisensory experience.
So with the multisensory stuff, we tap into your sight. So everything is curated. What you see, like, so when you open your eyes, we may start a ceremony, but when you open your eyes, maybe 2 hours later and the sun goes down, maybe 400 candles will have come on that you never knew were there. So it's like we bring things to
good. So it's that whole experience. It's that whole psychedelic experience. I love that.
Yeah. So it all of it matters. What you see, what you feel, the container, because, if the container is not set correctly, all kinds of stuff can come in. You're so vulnerable when you're on psychedelics. If you're around another person who has a different energy, that can make you have a bad trip, just off the top. So like that whole container has to be set in a safe way so that people feel like, oh, I can feel free enough to just relax and be all of myself. And then we have touch. So whereas in the lab, they don't touch you. And of course, we don't touch inappropriately, but like we'll hold your hand. We're rocking people. We're rubbing their heads. We're wiping their tears, wiping their noses, so like we're doing trigger point therapy if they feel like they're having a hard time. So we're very hands-on in
Right.
an appropriate way, but we're very hands-on and we ask for permission for everything. So
Right.
if I'm going to come sit next to you, I say, is it okay if I sit next to you?
Right.
You know, is it okay if I hold you? You know, so like, and everybody's like, please,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's because
Right.
they need that. They need to be held. They need to feel
Right.
safe.
We're all human beings. We're not machines. You know, there's no, I mean, we're all, you know, peers to each other. We're all human. You know, we all want to be seen, heard, loved, and recognized.
Exactly.
And touch is huge. So we've got the sight, we've got the
smell, what you hear. I have a very curated music that goes on. So it helps you, it moves the journey along. So, you know, I know when it's going high, I know when it's going to dip that back down. Like I know the waves of the medicine.
Right.
And so the music is curated to help you go along your journey.
Right. And when people talk about that, you know, Stanislav Grof talks, you know, I've done some of his breath, I've done journey work, but I love the science of the music in terms of really helping you lift off, helping you, you know, there's chaos, there's conflict, there's really helping, like sounds and music that really helps you dig up stuff. So it's not just sort of like, you know, oh, you know, buckle in, we're going off for a flight. No, it's really around how do we evoke, or how do we do the digging, right? The psychic digging, and the music is a continual process. No matter what you're doing, it seems like music's very much involved with all of that. It's amazing.
Music is the car we all got in.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like music is the car and we're just riding along, you know, on that car. And I always tell people to watch the whole experience like a movie. Right. Especially if they feel like they are going to have a hard time, or they're scared, or something's going to come up, or if they've dealt with a lot of grief, or, you know, different things where people get really nervous. I always say, just watch it like a movie, because I promise at the end, the credits will roll and it'll be over. So if you just sit back, don't fight with this movie. Don't try to figure this movie out.
Right.
Don't try to talk through the movie, because you're going to disconnect yourself.
And where's my cell phone? Yeah.
It's just go with the flow, because sometimes people can get to the end and they'll think that it's over and there's one more wave, you know? So it's like, just, we're going to keep it quiet. We got one more wave to go through. So I know those waves very well. And so the music, you know, we start off with like, it's a little bit more, you know, drummy, you know, kind of like ancient drummy, but it still has, my stuff still has a little bit of a beat to it, but it's all instrumental for the most part.
Right.
But when it starts off there, as soon as they take the medicine, we're going into breath work.
Oh, good.
Maybe like 10 minutes.
Good.
And then off to the races. You know, they have their blindfolds on, they're off to the races. And then we have a time where people can get up and they can go explore the little wonderland that we've created.
Now I want to go back to the breath work, because, you know, many people hear breath work, they don't really understand. I mean, you know, I did Stanislav Grof holotropic breath work. I use breath work in my practice, you know, and so on and so forth. But from your view, I'm just interested in your take on the breath work. You know, tell me, you know, what does it do? What do you think it does for the individual?
So for me, the breathing I have to use throughout the entire ceremony. So even before we start, when we're just getting to know each other, I'm teaching people how to breathe, because at some point, if they have a hard time, that's how I'm really going to get them to calm down.
Get them back into their body, into a state of homeostasis.
Present, you know, present on the breath, just being present in that moment. And so that's how I get that oxygen going in their body. Like, but they have to breathe the right way, because if they're just like,
right. They're not going down to their diaphragm or their belly. You know?
Yeah, so it's not doing anything but like building up, like, you know, smushing on a brake that's where the car's not open. It's going to like pop at some point.
That's great.
So it's like, I have the longest breaths ever. So it's very
straight.
But I am like transferring.
Sipping through the straw, you know.
Yeah, but I'm transferring, you know, I'm transferring energies to people. So like my energy is very calm in ceremony.
So are you attuning? Are you doing a lot of attunement, like with getting everyone into the same vibe, into the same breath pattern, getting the container together? Good.
You know, when they start, but not during, it's like 25 people.
Then that's
everybody is on
their own journey.
But if I need your attention and I need to bring you back because you've gone a little too far, and I know that you're not feeling safe, I'm going to bring you back to breath, and I'm going to give you that eye contact. And I'm looking at my camera.
Right.
I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to go, because I have to transfer my energy, that peace and that calm to you. And if you do it with me, it'll be like a back and forth,
Beautiful.
So that is one of the methods that I use that almost always works.
Right. Yeah.
I would say 98% of the time, it's the breathing that shifts.
Yeah. You're co-tuning with each other, and you're having that attunement. That's wonderful. So let me ask you, I'm sorry I haven't read your book, and I hope did we cover all the multisensory areas, by the way? Did we?
Some of them. I mean, there's
a ton of them. And,
we
don't want to give your secret sauce away. I mean, you've got, we don't want to tell them how it's all made. I mean, basically they have to come to one of your retreats.
Yes.
So that would be that would be the best thing, right?
The next one is in February.
Oh, great. And I know we'll get to the website. I want to talk about that, but you've got, your book and Redefining Strong. And I haven't read the book. I'm sorry. I just, I haven't had time, and I apologize, but I know that it's touched a lot of lives, and I'm wondering what inspired you to, to share your personal story, and what, and since I haven't read the book, and many of the other readers haven't read it either, what message would you like to, share that you hope readers can get and take away from the book, that is part of your story?
I think the reason why I wrote Redefining Strong was to help myself to heal originally, and also to finish with the debris that I had left over from healing that was left. I think that's one of the things that I did with Redefining Strong. I remember I had like 2 weeks where I was just at home, just like, you gotta write your book, you gotta write your book. I just kept hearing it as like a download every day. And I was like, I don't know what to write about. So I booked a trip to Costa Rica, and I stayed there for 2 weeks. And literally when I opened my computer, it just poured out of me. So what Redefining Strong was about was it's a journey to finding yourself, true healing and spiritual recalibration. So it was me finding my true self. Who are you without all this shit? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Without all the extra shit that's going on, who are you really?
Right.
Without, being on a show, or without doing all the stuff, without the accolades, without the titles, who is Phoenix? Without the stuff, without the makeup, without the family.
Yeah. The raw, unadulterated.
Yeah. Who are you really on a soul level, right? What are you here for? And what are the parts of you that you still need to heal? And what are the parts that you've healed? And how did you do it? So it's like, it has a lot of like worksheets and stuff inside of there.
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
To teach people how to do certain things. It's like,
beautiful.
How do you love yourself? And it's not like, people always say you need to love yourself, but it's like, how do I do that? Don't tell me to love myself, because that doesn't mean anything. What does that mean?
So it sounds like a real, it has some narrative there, but it also is about you finding your own narrative and your own story. And, I always say, if you change your story, you change your life. If you're able, and you can't change your story until you really understand your story, and you give yourself the love and the acceptance that you need based on your story to go ahead and now write another chapter. It sounds to me like that's kind of the guidebook that you've created.
It is a guidebook. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a guidebook.
That's wonderful.
But it also has my autobiography in it. So it tells stories from my life and things that I've gone through, from rape, abuse, from going through traumas, and like all of the things that I went through that I had to heal from, and how I did it. Realizations I had to have in order to get through these things, in order to still be compassionate, in order to still have that love and, that shiny stuff that you talked about in the beginning so beautifully. It's like, how did I get back to there and not be in bitterness? How am I able to do that after so much pain and abuse and, bad relationships and lack of trust? How did I get back to myself so that I am not in a dark space?
So I'll tell you what, I will send you a copy of my book if you send me a copy of your book. My
For
book is
sure.
The
You will.
Mindfulness Experience. It's a guide, and it's very, some of my story in there, and so I feel a little simpatico here, and I'm really very curious as to
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
what your book is all about, and kind of, I think
It's actually back there. I'll send it to you.
yeah, that's it. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we're going to have some video here. So, this is all part of well, hopefully folks, you know what the cover looks like. So, let me ask you, in terms of, one of the things I said to you, when we started talking about is the whole area of the underground and, the race card, because because like in a lot of areas, the underground is not above ground, and there's a lot more that people have to really kind of show up for in some way,
Right. Right.
So I'm wondering, from your view, the intersection between race, mental health, and psychedelics, and how do we address some of these disparities and really ensure, in your view, again, equitable access to psychedelic therapy? And I believe this is a bit of a loaded question, because I also believe that you're doing some of that right now,
I am.
so maybe we can talk to that.
So it was very interesting. This is one of the panels that I did at Wonderland. It was called The Intersection Between Race and Mental Health. And one of the big things that keeps coming up is with the legalization of these psychedelic medicines, what's going to happen, because a lot of people who are of color don't trust the pharmaceutical environment for certain things because of the history, things
terrible.
And like all these things. And so they don't want to be treated like guinea pigs. Also, some of these things then now price them out
Right.
from having access. And so it's a little different for me because, I was in Mexico. So like, you just go to the shamans and you can get it, and you can have a full ceremony and all this stuff, and you can pay $100, $200, right? But what I'm seeing now is people are charging $20,000 and $8,000, and so it's so expensive that the people who really, really need it are not going to be able to have access to it in a legal way. So then it's going to force more underground stuff to happen, and that, I think, it's not fair. It's just that is a problem that I don't think people are thinking of when they're like, oh, let's legalize it and only make it go through insurance, or, like things like that. It's like, what about the people who don't have insurance, who really, really need it? That can't afford $500-$600 a month private insurance to be able to get a yes. Because, some insurances, they only pay for certain things that they feel like they want to pay for.
But then, ketamine is, I work with people who use ketamine, and, it's still not very affordable, and it's still not covered by insurance, and that's a medical model. But even still, the psilocybin is only legal in a few states, and, unless you want to grow it at home, or unless you can find a psychedelic church of some sort.
But even with the psychedelic churches, a lot of them are getting in trouble for selling it. And so it's like, yeah, you could take it as a sacrament, but you can't sell it.
Right.
Or you'll get shut down as a church.
Right.
And so there's still rules, so it's like, if it's not done a certain way, then you run this risk. Now, do I feel like they're out to get people who are just doing psilocybin? No. People who are selling it, maybe.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Diversion is a problem, yeah.
Yeah, so if it becomes a store, then you have a problem. If you're just doing a ceremony, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a few out there that are taking donations. Donations dies, there's donations, but to your point, they're selling it. And that's a problem. That's really, it's not good for the rest of the community. Yeah.
Right. So some of these churches have been, they've gotten ransacked. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen some of the psychedelic churches. I've been reading up on it. And so it's for me, having a psychedelic ministry for sacrament, for spiritual reasons, but I am not a seller. I do ceremonies for spiritual reasons where people come to me and they do it in my presence. And that's where the harm reduction and stuff comes in as far as like, okay, from the psychedelic therapy tools, space, it's like they do it in my space. They are monitored, for 24 hours.
Right.
And so it's a little different.
So, we talk about the setting, right? You create the setting and you have this wonderful sacred ceremony. Can you talk to as well, the mindset, helping people beforehand and or helping them integrate, or what that looks like in terms of maybe even activating some of the changes that, people might want to see in their lives?
Yeah. So in the beginning, they have a list of questions. Like, you can't really just come to our ceremonies because you want to come. So you have to be vetted first. You have to fill out an application and you have to be selected to attend the ceremony itself.
So there's a whole medical screening and all that.
Yeah, there's a whole medical screening. There's an intake form after you're accepted, because sometimes it's like, I don't want to do, 100 intake forms and you're not even approved to come from just the main basic part of it. So we'll start with the main application. We ask certain questions. I could deny you just based off of you just want to come just to be doing it.
Right.
That's not the purpose of why I do it. Somewhere else may be like, hey, this is a space for you. But for ours, it's for healing, clarity, transformation, like becoming more of yourself. Like it's for a reason when you come to ours, not just to kind of like, I just want to take some stuff. It's not a party. Like, ours is not a party. It could be fun and beautiful, but it's not like you're coming to go to a party.
So like for example, I'll just throw out a fictitious, I'll make some stuff up. Okay. So I'm on the board of the End of Life Psychedelic Care Association, so it's end of life. I'm an MDiv, interfaith, which really means there is no there. And, that's very much in line with what we're doing. But if I was, let's say, at the end of my life and I wanted to go ahead and have a transcendent experience and I wanted to be in a safe space, then assuming I found out about, the Sacred Celestial Institute, what would I do and how would that work for me? And why might I be accepted or not accepted?
I would probably opt to do a private ceremony with that person instead of a public one, because I would have to probably go through different protocols. So I still would have to look at your medical history, where you're at. There's that end of life care is a little different. I'm getting into it more now.
I mean, maybe I might be like dying at the moment, but
so that's different. So
I might have a year to go.
Okay, so I've had people. I had a lady who came. She was 72. My last ceremony, 72. And so I've had from 17-year-old to 72 come to our ceremony. So it's a pretty broad range.
Right.
But she had said something very similar. She wasn't about to die right now.
Right.
But I could tell that she was there because she wanted to just get some answers at.
Right. She was facing her death bravely. Yeah.
Yeah, she just wanted to, she wanted to experience something different. So it's not like, I want to go party. It was, I want to see more of myself. I want to experience something different at the end of my life. Like, I know that it's ending. Like, these are some of the words that she told me. It wasn't ending right now. I was like, you can't come to this ceremony and like die.
You ain't dying at this ceremony.
Yeah, at this ceremony. So I have to ask, specific questions.
Right. Yeah.
But you can come and have an experience. So of course I had to like look at her medical records and, just different things just to make sure that I protect not just myself and her, but the people who are also going to be around her, because I don't want anything to happen to her during that ceremony and freak out everybody else. And so, yeah, it was beautiful. She had a really great time. She got what she needed. And I loved it. Like,
that's gorgeous. That's wonderful. So when you talked about harm reduction before, and I know it's a crucial aspect of psychedelic therapy, but what kind of strategies can you use, for making sure that you've got the safety and the well-being of individuals, in hand, if you will, during the course of the ceremony? Let's say this. Yeah. So let's say this woman, let's say she was there and 71 years, 72. And, let's say she had said, I don't feel well. I feel like I'm I feel like I'm
Faint or
fainting, or I feel like I'm dying. Yeah.
well, most people say well, not most, a lot of people say they feel like they're dying. So in
Yeah. It's the dying of the ego. Yeah. We
well,
know that.
I don't know if it's always ego, but I think it's just like sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's
And we are dying. We are all dying. We're all
yeah. So
degenerating to whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I've heard it a lot. It doesn't move me. So I'm telling you, like I'm very like
Right.
grounded in
Okay.
ceremonies because I can't flip flop in my emotions and energy. But if someone came, we have different protocols. So one, if there is a real life emergency, everybody on my team is CPR certified. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to go through the training. You have to get certified. You got to show me the card. I have them all on file. And so that's the first one. And then we have certain things that we know help to move psilocybin along. I mean, the psilocin along so that it kind of speeds up the process. We also know how to not deactivate it, but to kind of break the connection in a sense, somewhat. So we have like different protocols. We have different things in the refrigerator that's waiting. If somebody has asthma, we have plastic bags with everyone's name on it. They're lined up on the table in the ceremony space, in the kitchen, just in case. No one's ever needed it, but we have everything like laid out. So depending on who you are, what you've gone through, I kind of already know, I know specifically about everybody's everything. Because I ask all those questions are in the intake form. And then I also send that information to one of our doctors to make sure that if they're taking a certain medication, will this have a problem?
Oh, good. Yeah.
Because even with the SSRIs, like a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't take it. But it's like, I haven't seen people have a problem even with taking SSRIs if they can be off of it for 24 hours.
Right.
And so that's one of my main
yeah,
questions.
It's a big problem with ketamine. It's not as much of a problem with psilocybin, I don't think. Yeah. So, and then the other side of harm reduction, I saw one of the questions on your intake form about addiction, right? Because there's this whole other area of harm reduction, which is really about that there is no such thing as addiction. It's really about misuse or, compulsory or compulsive use rather than addiction. And I'm wondering, do you incorporate some of that in terms of your...
You only saw my application.
Yeah.
That was the intake form.
So that was the application. Okay.
Just the application.
Got it. Okay.
Those basic questions.
Right.
Because that doesn't deny you if you had an addiction.
Right. Okay.
So I just need people to be honest so I know what I'm dealing with, and then I can ask you deeper questions. Because you could have had a past addiction to I don't know.
Well, I mean, if I was addicted to alcohol, I mean, it might actually help me get off of the alcohol. So
right. So it's because I've seen people who have come in. I've had people who have had issues with cocaine. I've had people who have had issues with alcohol. They feel like they have issues with marijuana. Different things. Sex. Like it varies. So I get a lot of people with different addictions, and I want to know, like, hey, what do you want the outcome to be? One, are you here to treat the addiction, or are you here to treat what's causing the addiction itself? You know what I mean? Because a lot of addictions are caused by an underlying thing that they just haven't quite got to yet.
Yeah, and I like Gabor Mate says, you have to ask the reason why people are drinking, drugging, eating, sexing, spending, all of those things, because in a lot of cases they're masking or they're using them as a way to go ahead and mask the pain that the individual has, this existential pain that they're trying to figure out. How do I take that knife out of my back when I can't quite reach it, And that's, I think, where the psychedelics come in, and that's where I think you're opening up that container for that. Is that, yeah?
Absolutely. And so, like, I just make sure if they check addiction, and we do the intake form that asks even deeper questions than that,
right?
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna approve this person, right? And I approve this person. They have a regimen they have to go through in order to detox their body for like a week or two, depending on how severe or how much or how little. Some things are casual, some things I did it in the last 6 months, or like it just depends on the severity of it. They have to go on a specific detox plan. before attending the ceremony. So every single person that comes to the ceremony, once we get their intake form, we send them an individualized detox plan before the ceremony.
Right.
And
right.
what we need them to not take or do
That's great.
for a certain amount of time. And then everybody has to fast at a certain time, like the day of the ceremony. We send out a message, it's fasting time. See you guys in a few hours, but we really don't start the ceremony for about 6 more hours.
So this is better than going to a doctor. My goodness, that sounds, and it's probably a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper, that's the thing when we talk about the intersection between that race and mental health. It's like, I wanted to create a space that was a bridge between high and low.
Right.
Like I'm in the center, a place where everyone can feel safe to come. Like I have high-end CEOs, I have people who are moms, I have teachers, I have actors, I have whatever you do, it doesn't matter, but everybody feels safe in the same space.
Yeah. Everybody's
on an equal playing field in that space.
That's great.
So it's creating something that's just right in the middle where all the different people can come through. It's like, like there's some people that are way on this side, they can't go to the way over here, so they come in the middle. So I want to keep my
you meet them where they're at.
Yeah, I want to keep my pricing in the middle to where it's fair, and it's like I can pay my team and my staff, but it's fair still.
Right.
Because I know how much this stuff costs.
Right. And if you're going along with the ethos, with the soul and the spirit of the celestial, institute, when the sacred celestial institute, then I think that's not only hoped for, but it's wonderful when you're able to bless someone that way.
Yeah, and then we also open it up for sponsorship. So like some people who come, they'll add and they'll sponsor another person to come. So it's a beautiful space, and I am committed to staying in that space. And people don't like it, but it's like, you should charge more. It's like, I don't want to, because then the people who I know that need it, they can't afford it. It's a stretch for some, it's not for others, but I'm in the middle. Beautiful. And that, I feel like it's beautiful space for me.
Beautiful. So so we're at like coming towards the end. I have one question, which is about you and about, maybe you can share a transformative moment or a story, from your work that really encapsulates, that brings together the profound impact of psychedelic therapy and or working within the sacred container that you created. And what that impact was, for yourself perhaps, or for someone else, one of their stories.
I'll use myself. Okay. So for me, I feel like, I've always, like in the beginning, like I told you, I've always been in this space where I was always helping people to heal and grow. I was doing retreats and, doing really radical exercises and things. And when I found psychedelics, I was working on a healing center with someone. They were like, you should try it. And I was like, no, thank you. You know what I'm saying? That's like the drugs that I don't want to be a part of. But when I did it, I was like, oh my God, this is like a life hack. I know so many people who need this. And not that it's just a life hack on its own, because you still got to take the information and go integrate it and do the work. So it's a mind opener, and I think for me, it has changed my whole life. So now I'm sitting here talking to you, like I started the Sacred Celestial Institute. I solved a lot of the holes that were in the space where it was like, okay, how can I help people with this? How can I put them on the right track to get them really in alignment, to get them really opened up, to get them really in touch with who they really are faster than just sitting and talking, where I don't have to say anything, but your spirit is having a conversation with you. You're having a conversation and coming face to face with yourself. I don't have to really say anything. Now, when we get to integration, yes, I'm coaching you, I'm answering your questions, we're integrating these things. But during that process, it's so profound because it's doing it with you on its own. I'm there just to keep you safe on that journey.
As a witness, keeping me safe.
Yes. And that is what makes it so much more powerful, because it's not like somebody's pointing a finger at you, telling you about you. It is you coming face to face with yourself. And I think that changed my whole life, because now look at what I'm doing. I have done over 400 people in ceremonies.
Wow.
in
Wow.
just the span of 3.5 years.
Wow. Well,
Not
I
to
want some of
brag,
that. I want some of that. I want some of that. I
but
want some
that
of
is
that.
that's huge to me. It's like, and the when I get my feedback, because I send out forms, I'm like, hey, do you think anything should be different? Is there anything that you wanted more of? I ask for real, honest feedback. And people give me the longest, most beautiful messages about how it's changed their life. And when I check
Oh,
in
it's
later, they're
wonderful.
like, hey, guess what? Remember when I said I wanted to fly? I just became a pilot. I just got my pilot's license. Thank you for,
Wow.
helping me to feel more
Great.
free. Thank you for helping me to open up. Thank you for helping me to heal that mother wound. Thank you. Now I'm pregnant. I'm having my first daughter. Not that I'm
Right.
responsible for the
Right.
pregnancy or all these things. It's people did their own work.
Right.
They came into I just created a safe space
That's
for
beautiful.
them to be able to come and feel safe enough to find themselves. And that is so beautiful and profound. So for me as a teacher, it's like, wow, I feel good. I'm walking in my purpose. I'm doing what I was put on this
Mhm.
planet to do. And
Mhm.
that makes me feel like I'm in alignment with why I'm here.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And all of that comes from your own work and you doing your
Yeah.
own work and then being able to create the space so that other people can do their work. And as you say, it's their work, and what a wonderful place for you to be a witness to that. So, thank you for sharing your story. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Can I tell you one last thing that
Yeah,
really, really is
please.
profound?
Yeah.
When I had brain surgery a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was right before I wrote my book. And I remember feeling like they told me that I wouldn't be able to put things together.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a hard time putting things together. I would be weaker. I would be disabled in some way. And I feel like I felt so hopeless for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a moment when I was on that table where I had to choose to live. I wasn't coming back. They couldn't wake me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to choose to live, to come back. And when you get those opportunities to come back here and do your work and you look at things from a different perspective and you're like, that's why I went through that. Like these hardships you go through when people counted you out and said that, hey, you would be able to put words together, and I'm having a conversation with you and I write a book and I'm doing all these things. It's like psychedelics for me is like that. It's like that rebirth, right? For people, it's like, I came back to do my work and whatever it takes. And so that reignited me on a whole nother level after that.
Right. It's that transformation and that rebirth. I call it a, reboot, reset, reframe, but there's more to that, because what you're doing is you're really shedding old skin and you're stronger and you're rising up.
Yeah. Despite whatever,
That's wonderful, Phoenix.
That's
wonderful. So let me ask you, we're at the end. How do people get a hold of you, and how do people become part of your community? Tell us. Yeah.
Well, you can get a hold of me very easily. I'm very active on Instagram. So Instagram is at Phoenix White or at the Sacred Celestial. If you want to talk to me, you got to go to at Phoenix White, because you'll get me faster. I have 2 ceremonies coming up, a retreat and a few other things this year. So you can go to thesacredcelestial.com. On thesacredcelestial.com, our next, I don't know when this is coming out, but our next ceremony is actually in Atlanta in February 24th. Oh, it's February now. February 24th is our next ceremony in Atlanta. And then the next one will be in September in San Diego. And then in between that, we'll have our 5-day retreat, and that will be in Mexico.
Well, we might be releasing the episode before the 24th. So if you're listening to this, please make sure you get a hold of Phoenix White at the Sacred Celestial Institute, and just go to go to the website and sign up.
Yeah.
Great.
I check everything, so I see everything that comes through.
Great. Well, I again want to just thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you, Phoenix, for gracing us with your wisdom, your insights, and your unwavering commitment to healing and transformation. Your work is truly transformative, and We're greatly grateful and really appreciate you being here and being a light to the world. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. Be sure to check out Phoenix's book, Redefining Strong, and explore the transformative experiences offered by the Sacred Celestial Institute. Until next time, remember to embrace mindfulness, cultivate compassion, and nurture the journey towards inner healing and self-discovery. This is Keith Fiveson signing off from the Mindfulness Experience Podcast. Stay mindful, stay curious, and stay tuned for more transformative conversations.